Hello, my name is Trydar. Today I'm going to be showing you how to build a Roman road in Minecraft. Let's get started. So firstly, we want to take a look at historically accurate Roman roads. And in ancient times, what they would do in general was they would dig down, and then at the bottom layer, called the statumen, they would put down some cobbled deep slate. Of course, the Romans didn't have cobbled deep slate, but in the Minecraft equivalent, I think that that's what this material would be. And then the next layer up from that would be called the rudis. And then they would be placing mostly gravel, but we can also use some dead coral in here as well. And the materials get smaller and finer as we go up in the layers. So the next one is called the nucleus, and that would best be represented by a nice layer of sand here. And then on top of that, they would of course place the top layer called the summum dorsum, or also the pavimentum. And to represent that, I've just chosen some plain cobble here. For that, of course, the road surface in ancient times was cambered, which means that the center is higher than the edges over here, so we can represent that by a few half slabs. And at various increments, they would place drains on the side here, just little holes in the border to drain off the water, like you see here from the road. So when the Romans could march around, they could always do so on dry roads with all the water drained off over here and everything. Of course, this is a textbook example of what you will find for Roman roads. It's not always as cut and dry, though. In general, whenever the Romans would build a road, they would use the local materials to do so. And sometimes it was no more than a dirt trackway, if it was sort of like, really off the beaten path. But for all the nice roads, like the Roman equivalent of the interstate highways or something like that, they would make them to this nice pattern here. Of course, there are archaeological examples of this exact pattern being done. But for Minecraft, we want to get things a little bit more ornate because we can. And I'm going to show you the rest of this tutorial now that I've talked about the historically accurate Roman roads. We're going to talk about some pavement patterns that you can put on top of this for the pavimentum layer that we just talked about. So if you don't want to have the cobble on top of there, just a plain pattern, we can use these here. So the first one we want to talk about is a simple 5x5 square pattern. And like you see here, this is just a simple pattern. And it's a repeating pattern of interlocking squares. We've got two colors of square here. Now for this, I'm going to be giving you dimensions for the reference models here. But to get the road patterns, all you need to do is just copy and paste those multiple times. Like as you see here, we've got the module here for the road pattern. There's one here, another one here, another one here, and so on and so forth. You can also use these to turn corners, like so here. And in this way, you can make a nice gridded Roman street pattern, which I'm going to be talking about how to do that in a future video, not in this one. After this one, what I'm going to do is begin planning out a full Roman city out of all the tutorials that I've shown you so far. We're going to be using those buildings and these roads and these patterns, and I'm going to show you what to do with these patterns if you want some guidance for that. Also, there are no materials count for this because everyone's road is going to be a different length. But the materials that I'm using for these in general are going to be diorite, cobbled deep slate, and just straight cobblestone. Sometimes they'll be a little different over here with perhaps some gold ore and some glowstone, or some lighted street variants. However, what I'm showing you here are suggested patterns. In other words, if you want to change out the materials for something different, a little bit more colorful, say if you want the diorite with some granite, that would be nice to have as well. But this tutorial is mostly concerned with giving you the patterns. So as I've said, here is a simple two-color interlocking square. Over here, I want to show you a color variation of this. This is a 5x5 square pattern, version 2. But here, as you can see, we're using 3 colors. And of course, in the middle here, we're just using cobblestone. And you can see between these two how it adds just a little bit more a subtle color variation in these. You can, of course, mix and match these two together. Both of these can be used to make a larger paved area if you want to. Like so, if you want to have, say, a 3 wide big thoroughfare, you can do, or perhaps with only a 2 wide road here, you can do that as well, just by building the same patterns over and over again. So everything I'm going to show you today is going to be a repeating pattern of some type. Over here is a variant of all of that again, but you can see here we are using some glowstone and gold ore. Say if you have a very nice paved area for perhaps a market square or something like that, and you want some built-in lighting, the gold ore is close enough to the glowstone, especially in the new texture, that you can pair them together quite nicely. And in this way, that should prevent spawns on your roads, or you can also use this for a larger paved courtyard area like so. The farm animals around here. Over here, we want to continue on. Let's take a look at, we're doing all the small ones first, and everything else from this point on will be getting larger and larger and more ornate. So this one is going to be the 7x7 square pattern. As you can see, it's just the same square pattern that we did, except we placed an additional border around the squares, and we're doing, of course, a 3-color pattern, as you can see here. So if you take that module and place it like so here, and copy and paste those, just build more and more, you can make a larger street pattern like so, and of course a larger paved area with that also. If you want to, you can reverse the colors just a little bit and make this pattern over here instead. So as you can see, it's just the same pattern as we did over here, except we have reversed the coloring of this to make it a little bit more different from the first one. So you can use the same pattern, but you can have them look just a little bit different depending on your own personal taste. Maybe you like this one better than that one, or that one better than this one. Over here, we do have a 7x7 pattern again. This one has the lighting with the paired gold ore and glowstone, like you see done here. Here's the simple pattern for that, as you see done here. So you can make larger roads out of that, and of course a large paved area out of this also. And if you've already done, say, my Roman market tutorial, you already know how to build that pattern there. So that is where this has come from. But those are all the simple patterns, just the simple squares. I mean, you know, Minecraft, these square patterns are going to look the nicest. Over here, however, we do have a 9x7 diamond pattern. So it's 9 across and 7 back this way, as you can see. Let me just give you a good close-up on this pattern here as we go. So that's going to be a module. So you want to build one of those, and then another one, just right next to each other, like so. And you can use this to build a diamond pattern for a road. It looks quite nice. I use these in typically medieval settings. They look quite nice in that. You can also use them to turn corners, and if you want to, you can remove the borders here and use them to make a larger paved area. I don't have an example of that, but you can do that. Now over here, we're going to use some typical Greek key patterns. It's going to be a 9x5 to start with. Like so, very, very simple Greek key pattern, as you see done here. And it's called a Greek key pattern because these patterns here resemble very simple keys that were used in times past. They didn't have very complicated locks in ancient times. So they just had very simple keys to go with those, and this is what that resembles. And you can see here on the corners, it's a little bit more tricky, but you can turn the corner with your pattern. Just connect it in one point. And also here at the end, if you need to stretch it out a little to turn the corner as well, that's completely okay to do. So you can make all kinds of street patterns with these. The next one I'm going to show you is, I have quite a few of these, is a 11x6 Greek key pattern. Over here, we have just some additional banding on the sides here. And of course, in the middle, that's just take a real good close look. This is the module that you construct for that. Over here, you just build your module again and again, like so. And you're probably familiar with this pattern. This is most of these are taken directly off of examples of classical Greek pottery. And they would also sew this design on their clothing, I believe, as well. So you can, of course, use the same design to turn street corners as well. And I will leave it up to you as to the exact needs you have for that, because everyone's streets will be a little bit different. So over here we have another 11x6 Greek key pattern, but this one's version 2, as you can see here, because we have just some additional twists and turns in our key pattern, like you see done here. Just a repeating and interlocking pattern, like so. A very good classical pattern. Say if you're building a Greek city or something, this is definitely the pattern you want to use. Of course, the Romans would use this quite a lot also, because if it was Greek, the Romans would generally appropriate it and use it and add to it. Over here, we have a 12x14 Greek key pattern. This is a larger pattern. As you can tell, we're getting larger and larger on the road sizes as we go. So with more blocks, we're able to make more intricate patterns. As you see done here, very, very simple pattern. And if you just tile that together, you can make this road pattern like so here. Of course, if you are doing a Greek or Roman city, you can have streets of varying sizes. You can use all of these road patterns together depending on what street that you need. And you could even name your streets. I would encourage you to do so. We will talk about Roman street names in the Roman city tutorial, though. Over here, we have a 13x8 Greek key pattern, like you see done here. Our streets are getting larger, so as I've said, we got more room to make a little bit more complicated pattern. Of course, we have to stick to very basic patterns in Minecraft just because of the block resolution that we have to play with. And here is a big zoomed out example of that. Very nice, pleasing ancient pattern. Over here, I want to show you something that you can do. These are going to be Greek key patterns, again, but they are doubles. Meaning that if you remember our pattern that we started off with over there, you can use those and make these double patterns and just draw a line of symmetry down your road here. If you need a really big thoroughfare, you can make something like this here. Or if you need another one here, you can use this pattern as well. This pattern here is just this pattern that we did back over here for this road, except it's tiled out twice to make a larger road. So this road here, this one's 17 wide, and this double tiled road here is 19 wide, and this last one, for an example that I want to show you, is another 17. So see here, very simple pattern. We are just mirroring our patterns together like so, and making a nice little Greek pattern thoroughfare that we can walk down. So this is, there's one more road down there we'll talk about at the end that I've added, but we need to now shift to talking about also plazas, because once we get to a large enough size, it's no longer really a road, it's just a large paved area. And this is going to be a 25x25 Greek key pattern plaza. If you have seen my Greek Agora and Stoa tutorial, this is from that. It's the exact same pattern, 25x25. It's just a simple Greek key pattern that we started with, except it's bent around into a square on itself, like you see here. And you can make a large tiled plaza area out of this. This one over here is a 49x49 Greek key pattern with plaza. I mean with, it is a plaza, but it's with lighting, is what I mean to say. So we've got, of course, the gold ore and the glowstone here. Pairs nicely with the diorite. Makes you feel very sophisticated walking around on such pavement. And if you have a building and you want to put a large paved area out front of it, that's what all these other ones over here on the side I'm going to talk about are going to be for. Say if you built my Parthenon or my Pantheon or some really large building, and you need a large square or a large paved area for a Roman forum, the second half of this video is going to be what you want to concentrate on those. As an aside, while I'm here, this here is a 31 by 37 Greek key pattern again, except it's used as a formal garden. So you can use these patterns, but you can replace some of the blocks. Say you replace the diorite over here with air, and you replace the gold ore and the glowstone with leaf blocks. You can turn this into a nice little formal garden, as you see done here. This is what I used for my Pegasus statue tutorial the other day. So you can also make very nice, pleasing formal garden patterns out of these plaza patterns as well, especially the Greek key patterns. They do nicely for that one. And here at the end, here's just a 35 by 35 modular and expandable design tile. As you can see, this is the same design tile as you see on the left here with the formal garden, except this one is all cobblestone, so you can see it more clearly. But as you can see here, as I said, these are modular and expandable. They're also contractible. So you can make these of any size that you need by just adding more modules to the middle or also to the top and the bottom here, depending on how large you want to make those. And also at the end here, I want to show you an example that it is bendable. So if you take that same pattern and you try and bend it in on itself to make a little sort of an L bracket here, you can do this design here, kind of. I mean, the designs for this get a little messy on the corners here, as you can see. So when you're doing these, it's sort of a process. You will want to lay out your key pattern to see if it's going to work and all fit together. And you can use that as well. If you want to, you could rotate this also and make really large patterns for either formal gardens or plazas out of this pattern here alone. If you have just a building in the middle and you want something to surround it with, and you have 4 entrances on either side, this would be a good pattern for that. So at the end here, we have a very advanced and a fancy Roman interlocking knot pattern. This is a common pattern you would find on the borders of their mosaics. So this is going to be a 17 by 13 Roman knot pattern. That's what the module is. 17 wide by 13 across, as you see here. So you just want to replicate this pattern here. And over here, of course, you want to build the pattern and then build another one and another one, and so on and so forth. And once you have done that, you can also use these to turn corners with. I showed you an example of that here that you can use. And over here, I want to show you with these that you can do variations in the coloring. This is the same pattern, but I'm calling this one version 2 because all I have done with these is reverse the colors on these. In other words, we've reversed where the diorite and the deep slate were on this pattern over here, as you can see. So it looks quite different depending on how you want to make it. So you can have several versions of these. You can either use both, or if you want to, you can add a splash of color and replace one of the materials with perhaps a bit of granite or something like that. And for the end here, we need to go all the way back down there, because for the last part of the video, what I'm going to be showing you here, these patterns here can be tiled out for use as roads. But generally speaking, I tend to use these for plazas. And that's going to be what I'm going to show you here. If it all would like to load in. There we go. And the first one we're going to talk about for this one is going to be a very simple pattern to start with. We're going to start with the simple patterns and go to the advanced ones on the end. So the first one here is going to be just a simple 9x9 triangle pattern. So as you can see here, we have just a very simple triangle pattern here. And what you want to do when you build the second module of this is you want to rotate that 90 degrees. And then you want to build it directly beside each other. And if you keep doing that, if you build one, rotate it, build one, rotate it, build another one to rotate that, you can see that you can make this a very pleasing interlocking triangle pattern here. to pave over a very large plaza area. Looks quite nice, I think. Over here, our pattern for the next one, we're going to get a little bit more advanced. It's going to be 15 by 15 interlocking squares pattern, like you see done here. So we have the central square, but they're interlocking because we have them one here, then we rotate it 90 degrees, one here, rotate that 90 degrees, and so on and so forth. For that, like this here. Very simple pattern. You can tile this together over here, just along the edges, to make this simple pattern, like you see here, to cover a larger plaza area. If you want to use these as a road pattern, though, you can just not build the one on the left here, and just build it straight down the middle here. You can use this quite easily for a road pattern if you have a road this large. For the next one, we have a 17 by 17 Greek cross pattern. Right here, this is sort of like the Greek key pattern, except it's formed into a Greek cross pattern, because by this time, the Byzantine Empire has started, so everyone's Christian. So we have to have some nice cross patterns to use for those over here. And of course, you can tile those together like we did with the square pattern over there. And you can use these for either a road pattern or a large paved plaza area. Over here for the next one, we have a more stylized 19 by 19 ornate cross pattern, as you can see here. Just a very slight hint of a cross still being in the pattern there. And of course, you can again tile these together to build whatever sized area you need to cover. So I'll show you this here. And of course, this one's highly symmetrical, by the way. So if we zoom in just a little bit here, we can see the patterns of these. I don't think you're going to have too much trouble replicating these patterns. All you really need to do is just look at them, pause the video, and replicate them off of what you see. Over here, we have the 15 by 15 interlocking ring pattern. So this is sort of like a chainmail pattern. So this pattern here, if you want to build this design here, just like you see, and you tile that together, you can get a nice pattern here that looks like it has interlocking rings all over it, like so here. And if you want to reverse colors on these for every other one, you can also make a checkerboard interlocking ring pattern design like this here. So in other words, if you take the first module we looked at here and reverse all the colors for the deep slate and the diorite and build it beside each other, like so, and then flip it around like you have here, you can get more out of these designs than what I'm showing you here just by using variations in coloring and material selection. So over here, getting a little bit more advanced, this is going to be an octagonal 15 by 15 Roman plaza pattern. This is an authentic ancient Roman pattern that we have here. A lot of these are authentic patterns. Some of them I've made up though. So here we have just a very simple pattern like you see done here. And if you build that and tile it together, you can see that that immediately forms an octagon like here in the center. And if you tile that out to a very large space, you can see that they start interlocking together, as you see here. I think there are some Roman mosaics in Pompeii that have this pattern, also the cube pattern that we'll be taking a look at shortly. So, like I said about the interlocking patterns, like I said about getting more mileage out of existing patterns, there we go. This is the same thing, but this is version 2, because we have just changed how the block palette is colored here with the material selections that we have used. So if we take this pattern here and we tile it out, we can make this pattern here and tile that out again. We can make this large pattern here, which looks quite nice, one of my favorite patterns. But over here you can see, let me just zoom out, you can see both of these are the same patterns, but depending on how we have selected and placed the materials, you can make them look very different from each other. And these are only 2 examples that I'm showing to you here, of course, with all these patterns. If you add even more material selections than just the 2 or 3 that I'm showing to you here, you can get a lot more mileage out of these patterns that I'm showing you. So here we have an 18 by 14 cube plaza repeating pattern. This was a difficult pattern to construct, but this module here, if you build this exact module, and then you build a whole bunch of them beside each other, and let me just zoom out on this here. And then if you look at it for a second and pretend that the light areas are being lit by light, and it's sort of a, how do I say? It's sort of an interplay on light and shadow. Maybe if I look at it from an oblique angle here, you will be able to see it. Sort of like one of those paintings. If you realize that the two-dimensional shape here, if you think of the light and the dark here as gradients of light and shadow, you may already see that you might be able to see a cube pattern here, but sort of a three-dimensional cube pattern. And I think this pattern here is highly appropriate to use in Minecraft because we have nothing but cubes to play with to build this. So it can be a nice, pleasing and repeating pattern. It's a very simple pattern to start with. Of course, I've used this before on my Coliseum tutorial. But it's a rather simple repeating pattern. If you figure out how to build one module, you can build the rest of them here, and you can see we have sort of a three-dimensional effect going on here. Here is the same thing again, but it's just a larger version of that, like you see done here. So I'm going to land here for a minute. So this is a 12 by 20 large cube repeating pattern. So let me just show you the module here from the top down. A very simple pattern to start with, as you can see, but when you tile that together, you can get a very nice effect over here that looks like you have three-dimensional cubes for your pavement pattern instead of it being completely flat. And of course, this is an ancient Roman pattern that they would use, like so. Over here, we have another ancient Roman pattern. This one's more advanced, though. As you can see, it's like the 3D cube pattern over here, except it's a little bit more subtle in its design. So this one is a 15 by 15 repeating Roman plaza pattern. As you can see, you can also use this for a road if you want to. So let me zoom in here and show you the complete pattern. So this is one module. And if you build that module a whole bunch more times, you can get a very nice repeating pavement pattern like this here. It's one of my favorite pavement patterns. It's one of the very first ones that I made quite a few years ago now. But I really like how we have the gradients here between the three colors and everything. Of course, this is another one of those patterns that you can use different materials with. You can also frame this out as a square like we have done here, if you want to make a tiled pattern, but not have it face directly each other. If you want to perhaps use this as a road pattern, you could use this module here. I'll just land and show you this. A 17 by 17 square border example of that, like you see done there. So now for all of this, I've shown you a lot of repeating plaza patterns. What I'm going to show you now is something that you can do with these patterns to make a complete example of something. And people have long asked me for this particular one here. So this is a 101 by 101 compass rose pattern. It's an 8-pointed star, but it's a compass rose. A lot of people have used this symbol for various things over the years. I intend no particular connotation associated with this, only because it looks quite nice in Minecraft with all our squares and everything. That's why I like to use it. But it's just to say simple compass rose. So if you look on very old maps, you will see this pattern on there as well. And that's what it's meant to be, by the way. Because remember that all roads do lead to Rome, but where in Rome do they come together at? I mean, if they all lead to Rome, they have to come together at some point, don't they? So if they do lead to Rome, then this point right here would be the very center of our plaza where all of our Roman roads converge, the very heart of the Roman world, as it were, right here. And that is why I've chosen to make a compass rose in the center of that. It's sort of pointing out in all directions from the heart of the city. This could perhaps be the main forum paving plaza for this. So let me zoom out on this. So as I said, this star here is 101 by 101. It is very large. You would only want to use one of these in your city for like the main area. If you have a spawn point, you may want to set it like in the middle there. You can also place a very large fountain in the middle of the compass rose. I tend to do that as well. I will come back and give you some measurements at the end here for this if you want to make one of those. But I want to go ahead and say that if you want to add a border to this, say one of our Greek key patterns like I showed you, you can do so right here, just add a really big border with all the repeating patterns, turn the corners, make a big square. Like I showed you over there with those patterns, that's all this is over here for that. And what I will generally do with these, you will see we have a lot of empty grass and air blocks down there. So I have 3 complete examples of the different patterns over here that I've shown you for the plazas that we can use if we stamp the star pattern into a plaza pattern over here. So we have a complete example of the star pattern with the Greek key border with a background of 3-dimensional cubes. And over here we have the same thing again, except the background is the interlocking octagon pattern. I quite like this one. Over here again, we have the last plaza pattern I showed you as a background here as well. So, as you can see, you can use these patterns as bits and pieces of things to make very large patterns. You could use a larger, different border of any of the road patterns I have showed you over there. If you want to, you could use perhaps the cube background here with the star in the middle, but for the border, you could perhaps use this pattern over here for that as well. And at the end here, I just want to show you quickly how I make these. So I put all these together in MC Edit. I will make the star pattern first, then I add the border around it, and then I copy and paste the backgrounds that I've shown you from the reference models over here. We just copy and paste it a whole bunch of times, and I will stamp that pattern over there into this over here, and then trim off the edges, and that's how I create these patterns here. So here we have the same pattern again, except we have an interlocking ring pattern for the background on that there. So you can see that these are by no means all the patterns that you can use that exist, but these are the most common and I think easiest to replicate, and also patterns that look nice for any situation you may have that you may need to build for roads in your worlds, also roads, but not only plazas. Because we want to have our roads at various places empty out into large paved areas that we can use, say if we want to set up a monument on something, or we want to have a nice market square, we can use that for that. And of course, all these are available for download in the video description, by the way. Having said that, I'm going to give you some measurements at the end here for this square, and because I haven't placed a single block in this tutorial so far, because all we're doing is taking a look at patterns, but I'm going to paste some hash slabs here to show you this star pattern. And I'm going to show you a quarter of the pattern here, because this is has 4-way symmetry, as you can see, straight down the gold ore in the middle here. We have just a simple line of symmetry. The only thing that's different to make it have a 3D effect is we want to alternate the light and dark materials as infill in the middle there. So if we do along our center line here, like so, we want to have 4 blocks here, and then 4 again, 4 here. Of course, the block you should be placing is directly below the half slab. 4 again there, another 4. 4, you can see we're just doing this at a slope of 4 blocks. And then 4 here again, but we want to then turn the corner for 2 and 2 and 1. Then 2 and 2 and 1. 2 and 2 and 1. 2 and 2 and 1 again, another 2 and 2 and 1. And on the end here we have our little point. And if you want to, you can draw a 45-degree line right here. That will go all the way to the center. You can see the gold ore doing that, like we have done here. And then you just want to flip that entire pattern again, like you see done here. So it's a 2 and a 2 and a 1, a 2 and a 2 and a 1, and so on and so forth until you get to the corner here. Then you want to bend that as well, going back to the steps out of 4 by 4 by 4, like you see done here. And for this, just at a glance here, let me zoom in on a quadrant of this so you can see the design. I think all the materials are high contrast enough that you can see the design just based off of looking at it here. Like so, and for the little ones off to the side here. And it gets squished together in the middle here. Like so, but as I said, they all meet in the middle here. So if you want to draw a line of symmetry along that side, and then another one down the middle here, like so for that, and then draw another line of symmetry at 45 degrees off from this here, over here like that, and so on and so forth. For this here, you can see how this entire design is very simple. If you can build 1/8 of this over here, this little slice right here, that is really all you need to know, because you can just flip it again and then mirror it and then rotate it, and that will be the entire design for the compass star, like you see done here. And just let me zoom out on all this. It's quite large, so as I've said, this is designed to be a very a centerpiece design, a very ornate piece for your city. And whenever I do the Roman city tutorial, I'm going to start working on very soon, one of these is going to be the main forum for our city. So if you want to get a head start on building our Roman city, if you want to do that, if you want to do one of those, you might want to consider go ahead and building this on a big flat area wherever you choose to build your Roman city, because we're going to be building roads that tie in to the side of this, on the side there, and go across there. Of course, we're going to do a typical Roman grid pattern for that city as well. But of course, the sizes of all the roads are going to be a little bit different. We're going to try and use, we're going to try and work a lot of these different designs into the city. I think we can also have smaller paved areas and everything. So it should be quite nice. So I hope you have enjoyed the Roman road tutorial. Remember, as I said, all these patterns here are available for download in the video description. So you can come here and take a look at them for yourself and just maybe copy and paste them if you need to from the reference models. I think here today I have given you quite enough patterns that you can use them for any city project you might have to build. There's quite a number of patterns for you to choose from. I've also showed you that you can use these patterns and change the materials and the color gradients in them to get more mileage out of existing patterns to make them look quite different from each other. So hopefully you will be fully equipped now with all the patterns that you need to have nice roads around all the buildings that I've been showing you how to construct for quite a while now. But I want to thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.